Before we talk about job costing inside of QuickBooks, I'd like to go through a little bit of the theory. Now, as we're going through the theory, I'd like you to note that I'll be using the Contractors Edition for this particular example. Typically, when we think of job costing, we do think of the construction industry. However, there are many other fields that also use job costing. For instance, if you are in the computer field and say, for instance, you sell networking services, you may find that tracking the cost per job is going to be very important. Now, in the Contractors Edition, it includes advanced reporting and some advanced tools. However, in each of the versions, these tools can be manually configured. It'll just take a little bit more time. If you do a lot of job costing and you are in the construction industry, definitely consider the Contractors Edition. Now, in using job costing, there are some questions that come to mind that we answer with these reports. For instance, how do you track your revenue? Do you track it through detailed invoices? Can you break down direct material costs by customer and job? Can you reconcile your time spent to the actual billable hours for each job? Most importantly is the profitability report. And keep in mind, it needs to be timely. As we go through our job costing, it's going to be important that we set up our accounts correctly. In doing so, it's best to use customer names to track our clients. We should use jobs to track individual units or individual categories. Let's use a construction example. First, I'll set up the client name as a customer, and then I will set up my jobs. Now, in this example, we'll use lots in a subdivision to be the individual job. Initially, I may not know the purchaser, so I'll assign a number, and then I'll change it once I know the individual purchaser's information. A further breakdown will be to use the customer type. This is a field that will allow me to identify categories, such as condos, duplexes, single family, etc. The next area is the job type. The job type will allow me to identify project information, such as a name for a home area or a model, Copper Pond, Spring Hills. These would be examples. Finally, you may want to consider a dummy overhead customer. When we're working with job costing, we always have certain expenses that really don't apply to an individual job. It's nice to be able to get these all in one area so we can later reallocate them based on the criteria such as time, or prorate them by the amount of time spent on a job. Finally, there may be instances where everything is an individual customer lot, in which case you don't need to worry about jobs at all. When you turn on job costing, it doesn't have to be for every single customer, but typically once we start it, we tend to find usages for it within all of our customer base. Let's go into QuickBooks now and see where all this information comes into play. On our home page in QuickBooks, you'll notice that I'm on the Customer section, and I'm going to open the Customer Center. Here's Christy. Now, Christy, as a customer, has individual jobs underneath. As we edit this information, you're going to see a difference on both screens. Let's go to Christy, do a right-click, and go into Edit the Customer. In my customer level, and you notice I can tell it's customer by the name, I'll have information that is about our billing information and standard address information. In the additional information screen, it will ask what type of customer do I have. In this example, the customers are broken between commercial and residential. Keep in mind that these types are all about reporting. If I cancel out of my customer level, now go down to an individual job, once again right-click and go to Edit Customer Information, you'll notice I have a new tab called Job Information. Also note that the name has changed from Customer to Job Name. Let's go to our Job Information tab. Here you'll notice that I have a full description of my job and the job type. If we go to the pull down for the job type, now you'll notice I can break it down between repairs or remodel, new construction, extensions. If you recall from earlier, when we were on the additional information, the customer is residential or commercial. Now in the job, I can further subdivide it between remodels, new construction, repairs, and extensions. All these will come into play with our reports. Let's cancel out of our customer screen and see some of those reports. First, my profit and loss as a company lumps everything together. Now let's go into a second profit and loss. This is broken down just for remodels. I'm looking at a detailed view where I can see each of the costs for each individual project for each customer. If we go to Modify Reports, let's go over to the filters, you'll notice that in this Profit and Loss by Job report, I have simply selected a job type of remodel. By doing so, I've given myself a nice detailed report. We can compare this profit and loss by remodel to our profit and loss by customer type. Now in this instance, if we once again go to modify the report, once again go to our filters, you'll notice in this case I'm looking at my job type as remodels. If I go to the pull down and I wanted to see just cost and profit attached to new construction, I can easily change to new construction, say OK, and my report changes. The idea here is that for the customer type and the job type, we can actually go through and change our reports. And we can put in as many types as we want to. For instance, if I click on the customer type, this will take me to my customer type list. Now keep in mind that you'll find these areas under your list menu. You'll notice here is commercial and residential. Let's say for instance I also have government. If I go to customer type, go to new, all I have to do is type in government. Now I'll say OK, and I have a new classification. If I close out, I can do exactly the same thing for my job type. I have my extensions, my new constructions, remodels, repairs. If I'd like to add another new classification, once again, I can add a new classification. Keep in mind, in each instance, what we're doing with these categories is setting ourselves up for reporting. Reporting is going to be the key to our profitability. It's worth taking a little time to get job costing accurate.